Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the creation. I'm so excited to be sitting here, ready to start this wonderful piece that we've been talking about for, it seems like, forever. And of course, the last time I was here in front of a choir of this size, about to start a brand new work of this magnitude, well, it was Mozart's Requiem, and we all know how wonderful that turned out. Now, this particular piece, this is just sheer joy, is the creation. I'll be talking more about that as we go, but it is wonderful to see you. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see all comments as well. And just let me run through my quick sound checks and then we'll have a bit of a chat. But is everyone all right? All having a good day? Great. I have caught in the comments a few people aren't having the best day. I know for a fact that dear Anna in Portugal is having a bit of a biblical day. It's raining from her ceiling. Anna, as I say, I do hope that situation gets sorted soon. And just ever so sorry to hear that. Just we're all sending our very best to you. And yeah, that's not great. But everyone else, I hope you're having an okay day. At least it's not raining from the ceiling. I think that's all we can say for most of us. So let me check everything's working okay. Good. The piano's in good form. Let's just check the Fieri consort. Are they in the building? In the beginning, God. Sounds like we have a bass. Do we have anyone else? Do we have Tom? Ah, yes, lovely. And we have wonderful. Awake the harp.
Awake the harp.
Splendid, and one more, which
the heavens are telling the glory of God.
Such beautiful music. That is only a fraction of what we've got to look at tonight, everyone. And I've got some special treats, including a little presentation from Claire, who was the organist on this particular recording. We're going to have a little bit of footage, which I filmed inside the church when we were recording, and lots more besides. I can't tell you how excited I am by this particular piece of music, folks. The creation. Wow. But we have a bit of time now for me to say hello to everybody. And so I don't think we've had a choir of this size in a while. It's a huge choir for this course, which is obviously very gratifying from my point of view. Thank you everyone for signing up. And now I'm going to have a go at saying hello to all of you. Now, you know, those of you that have been on my courses know that I try and say hello to everyone, but I've got this list of names on screen, and as I talk, every time somebody comments, it jumps up to the top, and I have to keep scrolling. So you can hear lots of this. Okay, so I'm trying to keep up with the list and name everyone whose name begins with anything after J. So bear with me, everyone. And a very good evening to Alison. Hello, Amy. Hello, dear Anna. Lots of love to you. And as I say, I hope your ceiling sorts itself out soon. Hello to Andrea. Hello, Andrew. Good evening, Anna and Anne. Hello, Babs. Hello, Barbara. Hello, Barbara and Betty and Breda. Hello, Bronwyn and Carol and Carol and Carol and Caroline and Catherine and Kathy and Mark, of course. Hello to Christine and Christine. Hello, Dave and Jill and David. Hello, Donald. It's so good to see you guys. It's been a while since I've seen some of you. Hello, Dorothy. Hello, Emma. Hello, Evelyn and Jill and Gillian and Glennis. Hello, Graham. Hello, Gloria. Hello, Helen and Helen and Helena. And hello, Epi. Oh, hang on. I've now got to scroll. It's so many people. And so I said hello to Helena, and that's where things started jumping. Hello, Iris. And hello to Jackie. Hello to Jean. Hello to Jean. Hello to Janet and Jennifer. I hope everyone's having a nice evening. I'm now going to have to start scrolling. Oh, there's just so many people. My goodness, it's wonderful. Okay. The list is moving so quickly. Right, I'm going to have to catch names. I see Karen. Hello, Julian. Thank you for your message from Japan. Ohai gozaimashita. I hope you're having a good day. And hello Jane as well. And Leslie and Kathy. The names are now going to be slightly more scattershot as this list is moving faster than any I've seen in a good long while. I'm out of practice at this. I saw Michael. I saw Morrigan Fiona. But I can't keep up this. Right, I'm going to scroll right to the bottom. Hello, Yuko. Hello, Wendy. Hello, Wayne and Vanessa. Hello, Ulla. I'm reading from the bottom up now. Hello to Jane in Westbury. Hello to Thomas. Hello, Terry and Suzanne. Hello, Susanna. Hello to Susan and Stephanie and Seamus and Sarah and Sarah and Sarah. All three of you here. That's great. We can start now. Hello to Sandra and Rosie and Rosalind and Rita and Rebecca. Hello Rachel and Pippa and Philomena and Paul and Nancy and Patrick and Nona and Nikki and Nicola, Naomi and Michael, Maureen, Mary and Mary and Mary and Mary. All four of you. That's brilliant. And that's about all my computer can cope with. And the chat window has literally crashed. So if I didn't read your name out, I'm ever so sorry. There's more than 200 people watching at the moment, and the list is just jumping. And my computer can't cope with it. What a wonderful situation to be in. How's everyone doing? It's great to see you all. Hello to Maggie. It's been a long time. It's great to see you as well. Terry says... it's been but he'll lose his voice. Carol saying, "Give up, Ben." Okay, you know me though. I'm gonna do my best. We're gonna power on through to the end and see if I can name everyone. Well, I did my best. So I do hope you're all very well. Thank you so much for joining us for this course. We've been working immensely hard behind the scenes on getting everything done. I'll tell you all about the process we went through to capture this particular recording. It's a very special one from my point of view, so I can't wait to fill you in about it. And of course, those of you who've been coming along to my Haydn Around Sound course, you'll find some of the content in tonight's presentation quite familiar, and for the rest of you are going to learn a fair bit about Mr. Haydn over the coming weeks, and in particular the creation of the creation. How one crafts a masterwork and what it takes to inspire, well, the greatest composer in the world, which is very much the description of Haydn at the peak of his powers. What inspired him to write this music? Whose music perhaps inspired him? And where did the inspiration for this come from? Well, we'll talk about all of that in a few minutes. It feels like the start of term, definitely. Well, I hope you've all got your new books ready, everyone. Okay, who's going to be class monitor? Okay, well done. Yes, you get the job. Excellent. And give out the stickers. So yes, my computer is struggling to keep up with just the sheer weight of the chat, which is amazing. Now, lots of people have struggled with the language. Okay, so don't worry about the language. We are singing in English, bearing in mind this is perhaps not the most artfully written English, but more on this as we go. For those of you that have sung this before, thank you for coming to sing it with us. We are obviously going to produce a completely unique rendition, and it's going to be immensely special. And speaking of being immensely special, it is so special to see all of you. Thank you for being here. And I do hope you enjoy tonight's launch and, of course, the next 4 weeks. But we need to get started. So if I could invite you all to keep chatting throughout the performance and the presentation this evening. We've got nearly 300 choristers online. That's likely to rise as we go. So do pop up. If you've never popped up in one of our comment streams before, say hello. And get to know your fellow choristers, because you're a lovely bunch. And do enjoy tonight. I think it's time to get started, everyone. It's 5 o'clock. How exciting. Here we go. And a very, very good evening, everyone. Welcome, Choir of the Earth, to the creation. In the beginning, a choir was created. And Mark said, "Let there be singing." And there was singing. And what a sound we have made together over the past year and a half, starting as we did with Handel's Messiah. We launched a new type of choir, a new way of making music that takes the very best aspects of learning in a face-to-face choir and brushes them up and makes them a little bit more appropriate for learning online. And we have managed to produce, I think, more concerts, more performances, more recordings in the short space of time that we've been around than I think any other choir. I really would like to know if there's any other choir in existence that has produced this many amazing pieces in its first year and a half. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we're nowhere near done. Tonight we launch Haydn's Creation, one of the great masterworks of the genre known as oratorio. And it's just wonderful to be sat in front of you today. Of course, the last time that we were working on a brand new work together was Mozart's Requiem. And actually, what's wonderful about this piece is that it is it's like the flipped coin to Mozart's Requiem, where Mozart was obviously very much at the peak of his powers, but very ill and declining in terms of his health. Haydn wrote this when he was fit as a fiddle, whereas Mozart's work is absolutely beautiful, but also has quite a lot of darkness and fire and brimstone. Think koalas, those of you out there who sang in the Mozart Requiem. Haydn's work, by comparison, is light and joy. And so for those of you who are looking forward to learning this piece but never sung it before, let me just reassure you, where Mozart brings darkness, Haydn brings light. And that's not to say that the Mozart's Requiem isn't glorious. It is wonderful, but you will have just the biggest smile on your face as we learn this piece together. Now, the format of the next 4 weeks is going to be very familiar to those of you that have followed Choir of the Earth's courses before, but for those who have never worked with us, the way we work things is that on a Monday we will have a full rehearsal like today, and we will look at the music for the coming week, and then we're going to have our sectional rehearsal, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, on the following days. We're going to be here at 5 p.m. every day. That's UK time, of course. And we're going to break the creation down into sort of bite-sized chunks. Now, over the course of the entire work, bearing in mind it's in 3 acts, three sections, there are 10 choir numbers, okay? And some of them are quite substantial. Now, with 4 weeks worth of sessions, I mean, mathematically, it should work out at around 2.5 per week, though some of them are shorter, particularly in the first part. So the plan is, ladies and gentlemen, we will learn most of part 1 in this week's rehearsals, and then over the next 2 weeks, we'll learn most of the remaining choruses. And then in the last week, we will do the final chorus, which is quite a substantial ask. And then we'll look at any of the trios that we can fit in, because of course, here in Choir of the Earth, we do aim to teach you as much of the work as we can. And oftentimes that means we can learn some of the stuff that you normally wouldn't get to learn, the semi-chorus works and so on. So that's the plan. And well, let me introduce the work to you. Of course, we have this wonderful score. Thank you to Mark Cease for sending all of this out for us. We are using the old Novello edition, and I'm going to ask you all, if you don't mind, please, to follow along using the score that we've sent you, because I'm going to have to use not bar numbers. I can use page numbers and systems in order to navigate through, because the edition we have currently does not have bar numbers in. We may possibly be able to do something about that if we can find someone to volunteer to put them in for us, but for today we're going to use page numbers, and they're going to be taken from the PDF that you have in front of you. So let's quickly talk about the creation as a work. It was written at the end of the 18th century, right at the end of the 18th century. Haydn spent a lot of his career working for a noble family, the Esterházys in Hungary, and he was there for nearly 30 years. And on leaving this wonderful gilded cage, he was summoned. He was taken across to London, and he spent many happy years there, being feted really as one of the world's greatest composers. So much so that in his first few months there, he wrote a lovely quote. He said, "Barring nobility, I accept no visitors before 2 p.m. Otherwise, I'd never get any composition done." So the people in London absolutely loved him, and he had an amazing time experiencing this wonderful melting pot of music and art and culture at the end of the 18th century. And one of the things that Haydn experienced whilst in London changed his life forever. He went to Westminster Abbey, and he experienced one of the big Handel festivals. Now, of course, we're all familiar with Handel here in Choir of the Earth. We've performed his Messiah a couple of times. But the people of England loved the music of Handel, and every year they would perform at least one of his major works with hundreds of people taking part. And on this particular instance, 1791, Haydn went to Westminster Abbey, and he saw a performance of Messiah with 1,000 people participating, an orchestra of hundreds, a choir of many hundreds more. And we know for a fact this really inspired him. He wrote extensively about the experience. He said he felt as if he'd been thrown back to the beginning of his musical life, he felt like a student again, basically confronted with this wall of sound. And it very much inspired him, so that when he got back to Vienna, he wanted to write a work of similar gravity and gravitas. He'd also, whilst he was living in England, everyone, experienced a chance to look through a telescope, which had been built by Mr. William Herschel, the man who discovered Uranus. And by looking through this telescope, he saw the cosmos with his own eyes for the first time. And so those two experiences were married together to form this incredible inspiration that was the basis for the creation. Now, the work opens with a wonderful overture, which I'm not going to play tonight. I'm going to hold that one in reserve for a future Monday rehearsal. But the overture is the representation of chaos, the way that people used to think that the universe was born. In the beginning was chaos, and then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And this is obviously the days before the Big Bang. And the overture is an amazing piece of music. I'll talk more about it, as I say. And it's followed by a single voice. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And that's where we're going to pick things up this evening, everyone. I'm going to introduce the Fieri Consort shortly and our wonderful organist, but I want to play you the very first bit of choral singing. So if you could open your scores, everyone, to page 2, and you'll see at the bottom, "In the beginning," and a recit. And what we have is one of the 3 angels. Now, the angels play the part, play an important role in the first 2 parts of the creation. In Messiah, we don't have characters particularly. We have just the soloists, whereas in the creation, we have 3 angels. We have Raphael, we have Uriel, and we have Gabriel. And they're sung by soprano, tenor, and bass, respectively. And so the bass opens the work. And what we have is this incredible moment where the choir sings, "Let there be light," and there was light. And this enormous chord erupts. And just before you hear it, I want to just put this into context. This chord on "and there was light" was so surprising and was so delightful to the audience when they first heard it, that they went completely wild. They cheered, they whooped. They couldn't continue with the performance for several minutes after this particular chord. Now, these days, audiences don't necessarily do that. For a start, we have recordings so we can listen to it. But I just want you to have that in mind, that when we sing "and there was light," which you'll see on page 3, I'm going to ask Connor to make it the loudest thing that Choir of the Earth has ever sung. Okay, I'm going to want him to be pushing the limits of what's possible in terms of the sound. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the beginning, what a place to start. Okay, so please do follow along, and I'll be introducing the wonderful Fieri Consort shortly, but the bass you're going to hear with the soloist, this is dear Ben McKee. Of course, we know Ben's voice. So here is "In the Beginning."
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep.
And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there big light. And there was light.
And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness.
Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. We're off to the races. That is how the creation begins vocally. And as I say, that chord, that massive C major chord that rings out throughout the choir and throughout the orchestra, in our case, the organ, was totally unexpected. Nobody knew it was coming. Haydn even omitted that page from the rehearsals on the day so that nobody had any idea. And somebody said of the performance, when that moment happened, it looked for all the world like beams of light, laser beams effectively, were shooting out of the composer's eyes. He knew that he had something very special there. So just imagine what that's going to sound like when we all sing that together. That's where we start in our rehearsals this week. So let me take a moment, everyone, to introduce you to the musicians who have worked immensely hard behind the scenes to create these wonderful guide tracks. And do bear in mind that what we do here on Choir of the Earth is unlike, I think, any other choir in the world. We record everything and then we start learning it. It's really quite something. Now, the organ that you've been enjoying so far this evening and will be enjoying for the next 4 weeks is a very, very special instrument. This is the organ at St Mary Redcliffe Church here in Bristol. And St Mary Redcliffe is a really beautiful church. Queen Elizabeth I herself said that it was the fairest church in all the land. And it is an absolute beauty. The organ inside, well, I'm going to let Claire tell you all about it in a minute. Claire Alsop is our organist. I've known Claire for a lot of years. She and I were at university together, and she has played for me more times than I can count here in Bristol. And when Mark and I were discussing getting everything together for this, I said I would love to ask Claire to do this. So I'm going to actually turn things over to her just for a minute, everyone. I'm going to let Claire introduce you to the wonderful organ that she's playing. So Claire, over to you.
Hi, I'm Claire and I'm one of the organists here at St Mary Redcliffe Church in Bristol, and this is the organ. It's a Harrison and Harrison organ. Harrison and Harrison have built a lot of organs for many of the cathedrals in the UK. They've built the organ for King's College, Cambridge, Durham Cathedral and many more. And in Bristol, we've got the organ here, and also at Bristol Beacon there is a Harrison and a Harrison organ there as well, and all over the place. There are 4 manuals, as you can see, and each has a different sound quality, and they're located in different parts of the church. So we've got the solo up here, which I'll give you a little demo of. And probably the loudest stop on the organ is on the solo. This is the tuba. Which is pretty powerful. We've then got the swell organ, which sits over on the left of the church. This is the swell. And the great. And the choir organ. And of course, I don't know if you can see, but we've got the pedals as well. And the pedals are right in front of me here. We've got some beautiful fluty stops, but we've also got some real shake the roof type stops. I'll play you a couple of those. So we've got our 16-foot and 32-foot reeds, which sound a bit like this. We've also got our 32-foot double open wood, which really it's really beautiful. It shakes the windows. I think you might be able to hear that if I just play a little bit. So those are the different manuals, and the organ has lots of different colours, different families of instruments, just like an orchestra. It's a real orchestral instrument. We've got families of flutes, and then we have reeds, which is trumpets, horns. We've got the string family. And then the diapason family, which is probably the most organ sounding of all of them. So once you put them all together, you get that big orchestral sound. The instrument's just over 100 years old, so it was put in 1912. It had a big rebuild ready for its centenary in 2012. And I know we feel really lucky at this church to have this amazing instrument to play on.
Thank you so much, Claire. Wasn't that incredible, everyone? And what I loved is sitting here watching your comments streaming up, and just the sheer number of wow, and just you have to imagine what it was like for me to be there in that incredible building. And I'll show you a bit of footage towards the end of the interior of St Mary Redcliffe, which is just, well, if it's good enough for Queen Elizabeth I, it's good enough for us. And the sound of this organ is just incredible. Now, so on this, everyone, I want to fill you in as to how this has all been put together. So I had the wonderful opportunity to stand in St Mary Redcliffe Church. We had the whole place to ourselves. Claire's husband, Graham, who's a good friend, he recorded the organ for us. He's a sound engineer as well as a very talented organist himself. And so I was conducting throughout. And this is a wonderful thing for me to actually be able to be in the same room as the musicians, to be able to capture the organ parts. Now, I've had a few people contact me via Mark to say, I noticed the tempo is perhaps a little bit slower here and a little bit slower there. So Claire and I put a lot of hours discussing the various tempi throughout the creation. And we came up, it basically came down to this. If Haydn set the tempo, then we're going to do Haydn's tempi. And quite often when I've conducted the creation or even sung in it, if you have a full orchestra, the way that strings work, you can move really very quickly when you're playing a stringed instrument. You play very fast, articulated lines and so on. When it comes to an organ, though, if you move that quickly, you lose a lot of the definition. You also have some very, very fast singing. There are semiquavers in this one, just to be aware, everyone. Haydn was writing very much after Handel, so there's a lot of lovely semiquavery Baroque figuration to enjoy. And so we decided that we were going to be guided entirely by Haydn's tempi. And so that if any of you are thinking, this feels a little bit slow, our view was, well, if it's what Haydn wanted, that's what we get. And I also think that if we're going to be recording this all together, we want those semiquavers to be as focused and as tight as possible. So in short, it's not going to gallop, it's going to move at exactly the tempo that Maestro Haydn wanted, or we should call him Papa Haydn, as everyone who knew him called him Papa Haydn. If this is what Papa Haydn wanted, then this is what he gets. So the tempos, you will find them at the start of each movement, and these are as close as possible to what Haydn wanted, and that is what we did. So we recorded these organ parts, and then, of course, the wonderful Fieri consorts, our dear, dear friends, recorded their voices on top of those organ parts, and they have done a magnificent job. I think what we're going to do now is to enjoy the second bit of choral music, which has a rather nice tenor aria just before it. So if you turn, please, everyone, to page 4 in the score, let's enjoy now Vanish Before the Holy Beams. So this is the tenor solo that immediately follows that wonderful Let There Be Light and There Was Light. But you'll notice the choir come in about halfway through, somewhere on page 6, actually no, page 7 I should say, and we get a little section of darkness. Now, bearing in mind, as I said, Haydn's all about joy and radiance. We get to be a choir of angels throughout this piece, but there are moments of drama. He never leaves us high and dry, though. So there's a beautiful section, a new created world springs up at God's command, which is just wonderful. So let's enjoy everyone together. And it is our dear friend Tom Kelly who is the tenor solo in this one. So let's enjoy movement number 3, which starts on page 4, Now Vanish Before the Holy Beams. Here we go.
On you created world, on you created
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's Haydn in a nutshell, right there. You have a total mastery of harmony, of melody, of structure. I mean, actually, that's one of the things about Haydn. If you've found it difficult ever in your life to get into Haydn's music, something that someone said to me when I was at university that really changed my whole view on him. Haydn's genius lies in his use of structure, lies in his use of constructing the perfect shape for the music to flow. This is why his humour is so legendary. If you've ever heard the second movement of the Surprise Symphony, he uses structure to play jokes on everyone, just like the joke string quartet as well. And here, what we have is that combination of real drama, the despairing, cursing rage, which we're going to have so much fun with. Those of you that enjoyed singing those Baal choruses in Elijah, that we're really going to go for the despairing, cursing rage, everyone. But then the contrast with the beautiful and new created world that is just so warm and so joyous, and yet it's quiet and simple. That's Haydn. And you can see exactly why this piece was an absolute triumph from the very first time it was performed, and why today it is held up with such reverence, and is one of the pillars, really, of choral music out there. Handel's Messiah, obviously, is one of those pillars. Elijah is another, and the Creation is a third. Wonderful, wonderful performance. And of course, the Fieri Consort, again, just absolutely marvellous there. So we'll be learning those two this week. Let's move on. Now, as we move through the days, that is to say, as we move through the days of the Creation, we have the first day where there was light and there was light, and then we have the second day. The third day, we start to see more marvellous works being wrought. And so we have this next movement, which if you turn to page 14 in your score, it's number 5, the marvellous, marvellous work, Behold Amazed. This one is absolutely lovely. And again, those of you that were with us for Handel's Messiah, remember that Haydn was inspired to write this on viewing that wonderful work. Actually, to be fair, it was Messiah and Israel in Egypt, which is another one of Handel's immense oratorios. And what Handel did in Israel in Egypt, perhaps more than any of his other works, is he made use of special effects, or the musical equivalent of those, word painting, tone painting, to use music to tell the story. So you have the buzzing of the locusts, and you have the plagues, and you have the rushing of the water, and you can hear all of those effects in the music. Well, Haydn had never heard anything like it, and so he does this throughout the Creation. When we hear the whole thing, you'll hear all of the different animals represented by all of the different tones and the different harmonies and the different registers of music. But this one here, the marvellous work, this is where we see the Handelian brilliance really shining through. This is Haydn writing, I'm not going to say in pastiche, because it absolutely is not, but you can hear Handel's influence coming through, almost as if Haydn, well, as all great composers do really, was looking forwards at the Romantic era. It was just on the cusp of becoming the Romantic era in terms of music, but was also looking behind him at the Baroque era, so as not to turn his back completely on everything that Handel had done. So he's taken the best of the Baroque and infused it with a classical sheen, really. So let's enjoy the marvellous work, everyone. This is number 5, and this is where you really do get to let loose and sing as if it's Handel. So let's enjoy this one, everyone. Page 14 in your scores, and this is going to put a great big smile on your face. Here we go.
The marv'lous work, behold amazed, the glorious hierarchy of heaven.
Isn't that just joyous, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't that glorious? Beautifully sung, of course. Let me just double check. I'm pretty sure that's Hannah. That's our wonderful, wonderful Hannah from the Fieri Consort singing that beautiful solo with a stunning, stunning top C there. Absolutely wonderful singing, Hannah, and everyone in Fieri for recording that for us. Now, just imagine what that's going to sound like with a huge, huge choir. As I said, this is the biggest choir we've had in quite some time on this course. So hundreds and hundreds of voices all singing the praise of God. It's going to be absolutely immense. Now, what I think we'll do is I will commit to this. I'm going to mark it in. Sopranos, we will record a Choir of the Earth version of that, where those of you that want to can sing Gabriel's part. Okay, I'm committing to that here and now in front of you all. So we will have two versions when it comes to the concert, one with Hannah singing that solo so beautifully, but another with the voices of Choir of the Earth singing that, because why not? And did you see what I meant about the Handelian touches? It sounded so baroque, but at the same time with that wonderful classical charm, really. And I suppose that's one of the things that the British audiences loved about Haydn. They're so interchangeable. Loved about Haydn is that he was a complete and utter master by the time he arrived in London. He was already in his 60s. He'd been working for decades for these rich nobles in Hungary. So when he arrived in London, he was already probably the most famous composer in the world. Everyone had played his music. There he was in this metropolis, surrounded by people who just wanted to meet him. It was like like the Beatles or Elvis. He was absolutely huge, and everyone loved his music, I think, because of the total mastery. You knew where you were with Haydn. He wasn't about to rip your heart out of your chest as Mozart was inclined to do. Haydn was always going to take you on a journey, but you were never going to be left battered and bruised and shaking at the end. You were always going to be dropped back exactly where you were, but just all the better for it. And that is the great joy of spending time with Mr. Haydn. Now, everyone, so those are, we're going to get through at least those three this week. That's my aim. But as we have time and as it's the launch, I thought we could have a little peek into next week as well. So there are, in between these movements that we're showing tonight, there are some wonderful, wonderful arias and duets and so on between the angels. There's a beautiful, beautiful aria called With Verdure Clad the Fields Appear. Beautiful, beautiful music. Now, before we listen to any more, I do want to address the issue of the words. And I've already had some messages from people who say, well, why can't we sing it in German? Didn't he write it in German originally? And, well, kind of a little bit yes and a little bit no, really. The two libretti were written concurrently. And the libretto actually came from England, as it turns out. This libretto was dangled in front of Haydn by his friend Johann Salomon, who is the Englishman who brought... actually he's German, but he was adopted by the English, who brought Haydn to England. And he basically said, well, if you come back again, wouldn't you like to write this lovely oratorio? Here's this libretto, which had apparently been passed under Handel's nose some decades before, in a sort of here's a libretto for an oratorio on the creation of the world. Handel had turned it down because he thought it was too big. It would have taken him 4 hours or so to do it justice. But I suppose that was a huge temptation for Haydn. So Haydn brought this libretto back with him to Vienna, and he gave it to his friend, Mr. Gottfried van Swieten, who's a really important figure in his own right. And if you're not on my Ransang course, just look him up, Gottfried van Swieten. There's not many Gottfrieds in Google, so you'll find him. And he's very important to the world of classical music. But what he did, in short, is he took this libretto and he wrote it in a combination of biblical and Old English, because he was pretty confident that his English was fluent. It's not quite as fluent, I think, as he hoped. But it does the job. Sometimes as we go through, you will notice an interesting choice of phrase. These are the words that Van Swieten wrote that Haydn then set. When he then came to write the German words, this is interesting, they wrote the German to fit with the inflections and patterns of the English text. So that's why, for those of you singing in German, those of you who speak German as a first language, the German text doesn't quite flow as you would expect, because they were writing it to fit, as I say, with the patterns of the English. So it is entirely appropriate to sing it in English. This is the exact translation that Van Swieten wrote and that Haydn set. So we're singing the original words at the original tempi, and just when we get to some silly bits, just smile. Everyone always does when we get to the sillier moments. So everyone, let's have a listen to something from next week. And so this is Awake the Harp, which you'll find on page 30. And this one is another belting chorus. This one is where we start to hear semiquavers for the chorus. And again, you will very much hear the influence of Handel and the Baroque masters in the accompaniment for this. Awake the harp, the lyre awake, and let your joyful song resound. Rejoice in the Lord, the mighty God. So we have a big choral introduction. We have a fugue, again, very typical Baroque, and some wonderful semiquavers. We have parallel semiquavers on page 36. So at this point, those of you thinking, well, it could be a bit faster, wait till you see page 36, and I think you'll understand why I chose these tempi. Here, everyone, is Awake the Harp. And for those of you that want to sing along, there are your notes. Here we go.
Awake the harp, the lyre awake, and let your joyful song resound. Rejoice in the Lord, the mighty God. Rejoice in the Lord, the mighty God.
For he both heaven
There we are, ladies and gentlemen. So that is Awake the Harp. And as I was saying, all of those lovely, lovely semi-quavery moments here, that lovely gentle tempo. I hope it's not going to cause too many problems for you. That last page there is going to sound sublime when we've worked on it together and you've recorded it and Connor's mixed it all together. And compared to Messiah, you will back me up, nowhere near as complicated as some of the Messiah tracks we've had to do. Just For Unto Us a Child is Born is complicated enough. Here we have just a few bars of semiquavers to decorate the line, and oh my goodness, how beautiful it is. Well, look, everyone, we need to start thinking about wrapping up today because we've got such a lot to do this week, but I want to just tell you a little bit more about this beautiful church that we recorded the organ parts in. So St Mary Redcliffe is an ancient church, one of the oldest churches in the city of Bristol. Bristol, of course, is an ancient city in itself, in the west of England, originally known as Bridge Town. That's where the name comes from the Bristol Bridge, which crossed the River Avon. And over time that became Brigstock, and then eventually Brigstow. And of course, people who lived around here in the West Country, they've got a bit of a habit of turning an O into an O. And so after a while it became Bristol. And that's where the name came from. And the church down at Redcliffe has been there for around 500 years or more. And I want to show you a little video I took of the inside of St Mary Redcliffe. Now, when we call this a church, you have to bear in mind, in many settings, this would be a cathedral. So here is a little bit of the interior of St Mary Redcliffe, which I filmed just for you in July when I visited. Here we are. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. When they call it a parish church, I think they are not quite doing it full service. It is an immense building. It's absolutely beautiful. A little bit of behind the scenes information to share with you before I play you just one more track. We're going to finish today by enjoying The Heavens Are Telling, which is the track that comes at the end of part 2 and is perhaps the best known movement from the creation. I couldn't launch it today without playing it to you. But that magnificent building is located right in the heart of the Temple Quarter down here in Bristol. It's very close to a main road, and it's right in the heart of the city. So every now and then, Claire and I would have to stop because there was a parade of police cars and sirens going past. There was also a bit of an issue. We were there late in the day during a Saturday, 2 Saturdays in a row, and the seagulls all fly in from the Bristol Channel at around 6 p.m. And so on both Saturdays we had to stop for about 20 minutes as all the seagulls flew in, made an incredible racket around the church, which of course would have been picked up on the tracks. Sadly, I didn't think to incorporate them into the tracks involving birds. Mr. Trick there. And then the last thing was all the boy racers riding past in their motorbikes and their sports cars just outside the church. So every now and then we'd have to stop. A perfectly good take, because somebody was revving their engine. So, a lot of work has gone into capturing these wonderful tracks. And I just have to say, Claire has played this organ magnificently. The Fieri Consort have done an astonishing job, and it's now down to us as Choir of the Earth to learn these notes, to record them, and then to put together really a totally unique performance, unlike any ever recorded, where each individual voice is singing on their own but is then combined into a glorious final product. So speaking of a glorious final product, I thought we could end today, everyone, by singing through and enjoying The Heavens Are Telling, which you'll find on page 39. Now, we won't be learning this one this week. This one is very much a next week project, possibly even the week after, depending on how we get on. But, you know, all of the tracks are here for you to enjoy. The one voice louder parts, the without the voice louder. All of the choruses are there on your universal link, so you can get ahead. You don't need to wait for us. You can start listening to the recordings. They are exactly as they will be when it comes time for us to record them. So download them, listen to them as and when, and start to get used to them, so that when we come time to learn them, you're entirely familiar with it. Although, glancing at the comments, so many people have said, I know this work so well, it's written through my DNA. That's wonderful. I can't wait to hear all of the recordings come in. So The Heavens Are Telling the Glory of God. This is one that we will be absolutely giving the Choir of the Earth treatment to. So you will be learning the chorus parts, but we will also have a version where you sing the parts of the angels. I don't want to typecast you, but you've done this a fair bit, Choir of the Earth, taking the parts of angels. So let's have a sing through. This is page 39. And so once again, with the wonderful Fieri Consort, let me tell you the soloists. So who do we have for this one? Let me just scroll a second. So The Heavens Are Telling, where are they? So it's Hannah, Tom and Ben are our soloists for this. They're taking the part of the three angels, and of course the rest of the Fieri Consort is the chorus part. So let me give you your notes, everyone. Can't wait for this one. Here we go, everyone. Do enjoy. The Heavens Are Telling.
The heavens are telling the glory of God. The wonder of His word displays the firmament. The wonder of His word displays the firmament. Today that is coming speaks it the day. The night that is gone to following night. The night that is gone to follow the heavens are telling the glory of God. Displays the firmament. The wonder of His work displays the firmament. In all the land resounds the word, never unperceived, never understood. Ever understood. In all the land resounds the word, never unperceived, never understood, ever displays a firmament. Displays a firmament. Wonder of His work displays the firmament. The wonder
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I have the biggest grin on my face right now. Oh, wow. What a wonderful piece of music. And when I was conducting that recording, certainly the organ recording, I was bouncing up and down. I could hear your voices. Even though you weren't there, I was listening to the organ and imagining the sound of Choir of the Earth with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people all recording and all sending that in and creating this incredible sound. We're going to have that crackling with electricity, everyone. And when you consider how big choral works are usually recorded, if you've several of you, I'm sure, have been involved in recording sessions, you get a great big choir crammed into one space. You have a recording engineer setting up a few pairs of microphones, and then they go and sit at the back with headphones on and try and balance it all. And what you often end up with, even with the very best choral recordings, is a kind of a mush when those microphones are trying to collect all of those voices together. Now, of course, what we do is we ask you to record your voices individually, so every single voice is mic'd. And so the clarity of diction and of attack that we're going to have with this, I really do believe this is going to be one of the most articulate and one of the most exciting versions of the creation ever recorded. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for your time this evening, and thank you in advance for the coming weeks and months. It's been a long time since I've sat in front of you with a brand new work, and I am so excited to be getting started on this. So I'm looking forward to seeing the sopranos tomorrow, and the rest of you throughout the week. Please use your universal links. Of course, they are absolutely essential to how the course runs. If you miss any of the live sessions, please do take the time to catch up. They are your sessions to enjoy. And perhaps most importantly, from my point of view and for everyone, for those of you who are new to our choir, please don't think that you have to stay in your lane. If you're here as an alto, don't think, oh, I can only come to the alto rehearsal, I won't be welcome at the others. It's quite the reverse. We love to see people at our rehearsals. We love to have you in the chat. I can put the chat back on screen here, everyone. Look at this, flying up. People are so excited, are so keen. You're so welcome, everyone. So please come along to our rehearsals. Be part of our community. Share the fun with us on our social media. Follow us on Twitter. Take part in the forum. If you've not joined the choir forum, well then please have a look at your the details you got when you join the choir. You'll be able to access our choir forum and take part in the activities and the chat that takes place there. And most importantly, everyone, thank you for being part of Choir of the Earth. This is a unique ensemble that produces music in a completely brand new way, and it's going to be very special to hear it all come together. So everyone, enjoy. We have Bouncing Ben. Oh yes, Bouncing Ben BEM. And speaking of which, tomorrow morning, just to let you know, everyone, this long promised BEM, this British Empire Medal, which was at least in name, bestowed upon me last year. Tomorrow morning, in a private ceremony, I shall be receiving the actual medal itself. And so tomorrow evening, at the soprano rehearsal, you will be, Sops, the first people to see this bit of shrapnel. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with all of you tomorrow. So see you then. All the very best, dear friends. Thank you for being part of the creation. Let there be singing. And there was singing. All the very best, folks. See you soon. Bye-bye.